10 days to go. 10 days until the Melbourne Grand Prix weekend kicks off. Blimey, that's still crazy to think about. But today, we're going to be starting our string of videos, a mini-series, if you will, the season previews. I'm going to be doing one for every single team, so 10 teams, 10 days, perfect timing. That's what I'm throwing out there. Every single day is going to be a different team, and I've done it through a random generator, so this isn't in any particular order. This is just a completely random order of which teams I do each day. But today, the first one you have been given is Renault, a really interesting team going into 2019. So I'm chuffed that they were the first team out of the hat last year. A strong year for Renault, having come back into the sport in 2015. Every single year they've tried to build that car, make the team stronger and stronger, and this year, by far, not only does it look like they've got the best car they've had for a very long time, the driver lineup is very, very strong. But on this channel, we don't just accommodate for super sweaty diehards like myself, although you guys, I love you loads. We also like to accommodate for the newbies, the new guys on the block, and I imagine some of you watching will be watching Formula 1 this year for the very first time. So just a quick background check on Renault racing officially since 1986, their first ever team entry. They've got 2 Drivers' World Championship, both with Fernando Alonso in 2005 and 2006. The team has 20 wins and 20 pole positions, which is brilliant that that's exactly the same number. Very rare that that happens. 13 fastest laps overall, although, you know, that's not really an entirely useful statistic. Based in England, in the United Kingdom, at Enstone, something which is unique to the team, which officially is a French team. So, Renault, one of the 4 engine manufacturers in Formula 1, an official works team for Renault. They did leave the sport all the way back in 2010, but then decided, actually no, we fancy coming back, and they bought out my favourite team at the time, very sad to remember, Lotus F1 in 2015. And since then they've, well, like I said a little bit earlier, they've built and built, and every single year they've got stronger and stronger. Still no podiums, but many believe this year could be the year where it finally happens. The car looked good in testing, not a world beater, not a race winner, but it looked strong. And it looked like once again this year, the team that finished 4th last year in the Constructors could be in that fight once again. Their driver lineup changes slightly this year. They keep Nico Hülkenberg for a 3rd season. We'll talk about each driver separately in a minute properly, so don't worry too much. But Hülkenberg will be entering his 3rd season with the team, joining back in 2017. He's had a pretty straightforward time in Renault, coming into a team, a works team. Was he going to be able to deliver? Well, over the last 2 years, he's definitely done that. Positioned himself perfectly as number 1 within the team. One of the most consistent drivers on the grid. But alongside him this year, it's probably his toughest teammate he's ever had in Formula 1. And I don't mean that lightly. Daniel Ricciardo, Aussie superstar, Grand Prix winner as early as last year. 2 wins last season. Super highly rated, and I'm so chuffed Renault's the first one I'm going to be previewing for this year, because Ricciardo, this was one of the biggest talking points of last season, the biggest shock transfer of the summer. Someone who had been with the Red Bull family ever since day one, almost, of his motorsport journey. He joins Renault this year, one of the biggest gambles on the grid. Is that gamble going to pay off? It's one of the biggest stories, and I cannot wait to see it unfold. So let's dive into Ricciardo a little bit more. That sounded strange, but we'll leave it in. Daniel Ricciardo, like I say, he is World Championship material in my eyes. Not everyone believes that, but looking at his stats there, 29 podiums in 150 Grand Prix, in cars which haven't been the best. They've not been the worst by any means, except in his first season, HRT, that was the worst. But Red Bull over the last few years has not been a World Championship winning team. That's fair to say. And what I mean by that is they just haven't quite had the edge over Mercedes, Ferrari. We know that. He's jumped ship this year. But like I said, those stats are still so good for someone who's never fought for the championship. 3 pole positions. Even Max Verstappen to this day, his teammate of last year, hasn't had a single pole position. So this guy means business. 7 race wins. Born in 1989 from Australia. What is he going to be able to do this year? That's the big question. At the end of this video, I have a little chat who I think is going to come on top between Ricciardo and Hülkenberg in the driver head-to-head teammate battles. But Ricciardo, what is he looking for with Renault? Because the reason he left Red Bull was because he didn't believe in the Honda project. There are also a few different things at play there. Some people say it was due to Verstappen. Some people say he'd had enough of reliability. So what is he looking for at Renault this year? Well, first of all, consistency. He's looking for solid points, and I think he's going to be looking for a podium. Don't be surprised if they really try and put that on the hush-hush, but he'll be looking for that podium, and I believe Ricciardo is going to be able to do that. A very flashy driver, Daniel Ricciardo. He's not scared of making a cheeky move, lick a stamp and send it, but his teammate Nico Hülkenberg, I almost see as the complete opposite kind of driver. You can see no podiums. That's the biggest glaring, I was going to say mistake in his CV, but hole in his CV would be the best thing to say. 158 Grand Prix, 3 times 4th place finishes. That is really painful for Hülkenberg. 1 pole position. That was done in his first ever season in Formula 1 when he drove for Williams all the way back in 2010. He's had a really tough time of it, Hülkenberg, but I believe this year will be the best ever car he has had to potentially get a podium. He's been in the podium finishing car before with the Force India, but I think this year will be the best ever car he's driven. But as I just mentioned, I really do believe he's the complete opposite side of the coin to Daniel Ricciardo because, like I said, Ricciardo is not afraid of just doing a completely mad dive bomb, making it stick, being on his way. Hülkenberg isn't that kind of driver. However, that's not me having a go at Hülkenberg, because I really do believe not only is Hülkenberg one of the most underrated drivers on the grid, I think he's also one of the most consistent drivers on the grid. Last year had almost the most DNFs on the grid and reliability issues. Not the most, but I think he was 2nd or 3rd from all the drivers on the grid, and yet he was able to get 7th in the championship, which to new fans might not sound like a lot, but considering it was so tight, that midfield fight last year, what an incredible achievement it was to win what is known as the Formula 1.5 title. Don't worry, that's not an official thing if you're new to Formula 1, but Hülkenberg last year, a star performer, my driver of the day multiple times, and I think this team battle, I'm going to say this all week long in the build-up to the season, but none of these team battles, I think, this year, you can 100% say who's going to win. And so looking at this one, to call it now is really difficult, but I'm going to have to do it. If I was going to put my money on anyone today, of course I want to know who you would do in the comments below, but I'm going to have to say Hülkenberg. And I think it's going to be so close, and I really do think just one fluke result, maybe again, Azerbaijan. It could be in Azerbaijan, where Ricciardo maybe in the opening laps gets in a bit of a tangle. Hülkenberg maybe flukes a podium. I think maybe that sort of result could really swing this one. But for me, yes, he's not a flashy driver, Hülkenberg, but that consistency, I really can't express how impressed I am with Hülkenberg's consistency. But the fact he's been within that team now for what will be 3 years, it's not much more experience than Ricciardo, but there is experience there. There is history there. He's well respected in the team. I do think he will be number 1 in the team for the opening few rounds, but that consistency across an entire season, his, I suppose, demeanour for Formula 1 politics. Ricciardo last year really got down at the end of the season because of the fact that, well, one, he knew he was leaving, but reliability was so awful. Hülkenberg's a very cool guy, very chilled guy, and I think that will help him push forward in the head-to-head team battle. Where do I see them finishing in the championship? In my predictions video, I put them 3rd. Having seen them in testing, I think that's ambitious. I really do. They will be looking at a 4th place, I believe. I think on their day this year, they could be 3rd best, but if I was a betting man, I'm not. But if I was, I'd have to put them 4th. It's going to be a really tight fight, I think, with Alfa Romeo, Haas, and even on their day, perhaps McLaren or Racing Point. But Renault, I think they're going to stay in 4th again this year. It'll be another step forward towards the big 3, but not quite, probably not quite what Ricciardo would have been hoping for early doors. Improvements for Renault, nothing star-studded. I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments below. This has been your Renault season preview. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.